Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 180 based on novel. So let's start. Time swept through the mountains and lands, bringing away the people in the past. Only memories and forgotten histories were left behind. Time was like a song, and one that was definitely tragic. Qin Mu stood on the chest while embracing the girl when sunlight shone down on them like time. When the rays landed on them, the young girl in his embrace became flying sand which flowed back with the darkness. The penetrating sunlight sprinkled the golden desert and shone upon the scale-shaped dunes. The place had been a valley once. Even though the mountains in the surroundings weren't high, they created an enchanting scenery. Yet the passage of time only left behind a sky full of yellow sand. Qin Mu jumped off the chest. Even though he had known that it would happen, it was still hard to not feel depressed. The chest opened its cover and threw the dragon Qin out. The chest also seemed to be puzzled, though. There was clearly several hundred people in its stomach earlier, so how had they suddenly vanished? The dragon Qin was terrified and uneasy. He was very superstitious and extremely afraid of ghosts. Now he was so frightened that he buried his head in the sand. Qin Mu raised his head and looked at the bare cliff in front of him standing alone in the yellow desert. After tens of thousands of years of sandstorms, it hadn't eroded or crumbled. On the cliff, there were the writings that he had left behind tens of thousands of years ago. Human lives are greater than heaven. Qin Mu was stunned. He had really left something that belonged to him in history. Everything that happened last night wasn't an echo of history, or even a dream. He couldn't understand the marvelous experience he had this night, couldn't explain how he had returned to 40,000 years ago, and why he would experience a darkness invasion with the people of 100 Prosperities City. He also couldn't explain why he had returned to the present and why High Emperor era would vanish after the darkness. Yet everything had truly happened. He had fought together with the people of tens of thousands of years ago, saw how they laid down their lives and what suffering they face. He also saw the other celestial heavens about to destroy the celestial heavens of High Emperor era, and the deaths and devastation that caused. The era of High Emperor was destroyed and the era of Founding Emperor was also destroyed. Is it the same celestial heavens that made it happen? He had a guess in his heart, but he didn't have any solid evidence to prove it. Maybe, the ones that want to destroy eternal peace are the same celestial heavens. If so, where are they from? Beneath the chest, Pangong So got out silently and raised his head to look at the lone cliff in the desert. He examined those words on and said leisurely, "Cult Master Qin, you must be very disappointed and sorrowful now, right? Maybe that girl from my family liked you and you might have liked her very much too, but she knew that you would have to leave, which is why she didn't say it out. Time is too ruthless." His gaze flickered, and the calabash behind him suddenly opened so a lump of blood silently floated up. It made no sound. Pangong So stared at Qin Mu's back. The lump of blood in the sky was like a venomous snake wiggling its body. His voice was also like a venomous snake tunneling into Qin Mu's heart, gnawing onto his soul and destroying his Tao heart. This made his youth reveal a flaw. If you had remained in that era, maybe your life would be completely different from now. Pangong So slowly moved forward while adjusting his breath, making his voice more and more bewitching. He told him about a reality that was completely different. You two might have fallen into the river of love, might have had a lot of children. You might have been faced with numerous setbacks and dangers, but your lives would have been so much more interesting. The come and go of history would be filled with gorgeous colors that you little husband and wife would have experienced. What a pity. His tone suddenly changed and became toxic. What a pity you two had to separate. Separation of tens of thousands of years. Whatever love or liking, whatever future, would all become yellow sand throughout such a long time, transforming into fabrication. He revealed a strange smile, and his voice also became warped along with his strange smile. That girl of my family might already be long dead. After you left, she most likely died in the hands of the pursuers. Even if she escaped, she might have already married someone else, given birth to children, and become an old lady. Only when her beauty would have started to fade, would she sometimes remember that youth who had suddenly appeared and cupped her face. Cult Master Qin, do you have sorrow in your heart? Is it gnawing at your soul, poisoning it? Pangong So went closer and closer to him. His voice was strange, like that of the Devil King whispering from outer space, luring a person into falling from grace. She has died, becoming dust. 30 to 40,000 years ago, in this desert that hides history, other than you, this sentimental boy, no one even remembers her anymore. Just like that, she has drowned in the dust of history, and is buried under the rolling yellow sand. He chuckled and said, when young, you never know the taste of woe or sorrow, and up to the top floor you loved to go. Up to the top floor, you loved to go. Now sorrow and woe you've tasted, and the bitterness withal, to speak, you wish, and yet you stall. Cult Master Qin, your inner heart is just that brittle, let me end it. He was about to make a move, but behind him, the dragon Qilin's body grew larger and larger. He suddenly raised his huge claws and pushed him to the ground. Pangong So hurriedly rose, but was smacked back again. The dragon Qilin smacked over and over again, causing him to cough up fresh blood. Talk some more, talk some more. Pangong So was suddenly angered. Fat pig, do you think I'm really afraid of you? The dragon Qilin's claws, which as sharp as knives, suddenly flicked, preparing to slice his belly open. Suddenly, Qin Mu's peaceful voice rang out. Fatty dragon, no need to beat him up, let him leave. The dragon Qilin was slightly stunned. He asked in puzzlement, Cult Master, this guy is truly evil. He is first class in escaping for his life, and he even wants to harm you. If we let him go now, it will be even harder to catch him in the future. We fought together, and he also helped a lot to save those people, risking his life. He deserves a chance to live. Qin Mu put his hands behind his back and looked at the writings on the cliff. His expression was calm. Grandmaster, I won't kill you, so just go. Next time we meet, I'll take your head. Pangong So climbed to his feet and patted off the sand on his body. His gaze flickered as he said, You sure you are letting me go this time, and not just lying to me? You won't kill me when I turn around, right? Qin Mu looked at him indifferently. Too many people died last night, and I don't want to kill any more today. Pangong So turned around and moved back step by step. He stared at Qin Mu's movements while thinking, even though this experience was full of danger and filled with life and death struggles, it's not like I didn't receive any benefits. I've got 2 divine legs at least. Wait a moment, these 2 divine legs. His eyes lit up when he realized that Qin Mu was still standing with his back to him. He couldn't help growing excited. With these 2 legs, why should I still be afraid of this brat? I have the divine legs and my escaping abilities are number 1 in the world. If I can't defeat him, I can just run. Besides, with my speed being first in the world, my battle power will also rise in a straight line. I can get rid of him. He was so excited that his heart was pounding heavily. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes, but just as he was about to stop and make a move, he felt something and hurriedly leaped into the air. A sword light flew out from the desert, and cut off his right leg from the root. Pangong So gasped in pain as he shouted in mid-air, Cult Master Qin, you didn't keep your word. Qin Mu turned around and said indifferently, I did. I only cut off one of your legs last time, so I can return you one. However, I won't let you have 2 divine legs. Grandmaster, I won't see you off. Still in midair, Pangong So lowered his head to look at the divine leg that had fallen down. He wanted to pick it up, but the yellow sand below had already swallowed it. Down there, countless sword lights appeared and disappeared like silver needles weaving in and out, protecting the divine leg. It was the 8,000 sword form from Qin Mu's sword pellet. It was obvious that when he was trying to bewitch Qin Mu, the youth had already sent the sword pellet into the yellow sand. Pangong So immediately knew that he had lost the opportunity, and gritted his teeth. A lotus that was almost as high as a human appeared behind him. He retreated inside it, and they disappeared together. Cult Master Qin, the next time we meet, I'll take your head. His voice came from farther and farther away before vanishing into the depths of the yellow sand. Grandmaster is becoming very courageous and insightful. Qin Mu turned around, and countless flying swords flew out from the desert, sending the divine leg to the chest. He said softly, "This is a good thing. Once he has courage and insight, it won't be that exhausting to kill him next time." The chest was excited and hurriedly opened its cover to add the leg to its collection. Qin Mu looked at the writing on the cliff and said in a low voice, "If you are still alive, will you come to find me? Are you still alive?" Tens of thousands of years with trials after trials, would they have resulted in the death of a fair lady, turned you into a pink skeleton? He waited quietly under the cliff, not leaving. The mountains in the surroundings had all been eroded, so why was this one still standing? The hope in his heart hadn't yet died. "Cult Master, there's a big stone tablet beside the mountain." Suddenly, the dragon Qin had a discovery. Qin Mu's heart moved slightly, and he hurried over to take a look. The dragon Qin was standing near a stone tablet. It was half covered by the yellow sand, and it was at the foot of the mountain, so it was hard to discover if one didn't look closely. The stone tablet seemed to have mysterious power to defend against the wind and sand, so it wasn't corroded. There were some words on it. Qin Mu looked at it and was slightly stunned. The handwriting was aggressive, and the words read, "Heavenly Devil Cult Master Qin Mu, Roland's Golden Palace Grandmaster, buried." The writings below were hard to read since they were buried under the yellow sand. The dragon Qin was about to go forward and push it aside, but Qin Mu warned him in a hurry, "Fatty dragon, it's a trap. Don't touch the sand on the tablet." When the dragon Qin heard trap, he hurriedly fell back, and didn't dare to stay close even for a second more. Qin Mu sneered and said, "Using such a method to lay a trap, he's truly underestimating me. The words below the stone tablet are definitely none other than buried right here. If I moved the sand, I would activate his trap and die a miserable death." The dragon Qin shuddered and said, "If it was my name on it, I would definitely go forward to check." Qin Mu looked around in all directions, and saw that the yellow desert was truly desolate. Other than them, there were no other life forms, so there was no chance that anyone was lying in wait nearby. "Truth be told, I'm actually slightly curious." His gaze flickered, and he sized up the stone tablet buried under the yellow sand. The dragon Qin instantly had a bad feeling about it and said, "Cult Master, don't do anything silly." Qin Mu rapidly fell back, and said with a smile, "I want to see if the person that left this stone tablet in a scheme against me and Grandmaster left his name. He's such an arrogant person that he would definitely do it. Let's retreat 100 miles and I shall execute a spell to move the sand from the bottom of the stone tablet." Qin Mu's plan was already set, and he stopped when he was 100 miles away. The chest and the dragon Qin were right next to him. 100 miles was far enough. Even if the power of the trap was extremely strong, it would have a hard time trying to threaten them from such a distance. Qin Mu grabbed a handful of yellow sand and gave a gentle blow. The sand formed into a 3-inch human, which landed on the ground. This sand giant opened its mouth to roar with a fierce look. The yellow sand around its lower body swirled, and the small sand giant rushed toward the mountain cliff that was 100 miles away, overflowing with murderous intent. The dragon Qin was full of anticipation, but after a moment, his anticipation started to wane. He still stared into the distance, but there was still nothing happening to the cliff. Qin Mu jumped onto his head and looked into the distance at the sand giant. That tiny thing had just flipped across a sand dune and was trying its best to reach the cliff. The dragon Qin yawned and roused his spirit. Cult Master, it's almost there, right? Qin Mu calculated for a moment, then said, about an hour more or so and it will reach the place. The dragon Qin laid down and muttered, let me sleep for a while first, call me when it reaches. About an hour later, Qin Mu kicked this behemoth awake, and the dragon Qin hurriedly rose up while asking excitedly, has it reached? It will reach in about half an incense's time. Qin Mu smiled and said, let's go up into the air first. If something happens, it'll be easier for us to escape. The chest climbed onto the dragon Qilin's back as well. The fatty immediately stepped on fire clouds to rise into the sky while looking into the distance. From 100 miles away, a small thing could be faintly seen rushing toward the stone tablet while roaring fiercely. If it wasn't for his good eyesight, he would have found it hard to differentiate it from all the sand around it. On the other hand, Qin Mu could see it clearly. That small sand giant roared for half a day, and finally came to the bottom of the stone tablet, still full of vigor. Then, it tried its best to clear the sand away while roaring. Qin Mu was speechless. The dragon Qin opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he closed it again to wait quietly. He thought to himself, if I'm insensitive and mention this, I reckon I won't have anything to eat tomorrow. After a moment, the sand dune giant dug out a small pit, and the words under the stone tablet were finally revealed. Before Qin Mu could even see what was written, the sand churned in the sandpit like raising rainbows, drowning out the tiny sand giant. Not only was that it swallowed up, the area of dozens of miles around turned into a terrifying killing field. Yellow sand churned and covered the desert like an earthy yellow pot. From inside this earthy yellow ball came the sounds of knives crying. The hair and scales on the dragon Qilin's body were all standing straight up from the shock. Even Qin Mu felt his hair standing on ends. The trap was actually even more terrifying than he had imagined. Luckily, he was careful and had suggested going 100 miles away before activating it. In the earthy yellow pot, knife lights flew in all directions, cutting, slashing, hacking, and slicing. All kinds of transformations filled up the space of dozens of miles. This kind of knife skills. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. He suddenly had a bad feeling, like he'd seen something like that before. But it wasn't in eternal peace. It was last night, the night 30 to 40,000 years ago, when he'd faced that youth called Luo Wushuang of the Celestial Heavens Spirit Elite Guards. The knife skill that Luo Wushuang had executed actually had similarities with the knife lights in the sandpit. The one-armed youth is still alive. Grandmaster said that the brat won't live for too long, so I need not worry. Qin Mu burst out laughing, but his smile gradually froze. Not long later, his complexion turned green. The divine art trap that Luo Wushuang had laid here was powerful. It was so unbelievably powerful that even Xing'an might not have such boundless magic power. This meant that not only did Luo Wushuang lived on, he even lived quite well. He seemed to have become very strong, a god. He had to have kept onto the hatred for his severed arm, and once stumbled upon the cliff while roaming about after becoming a god. When he saw Qin Mu's handwriting, he had left behind a stone tablet. If Qin Mu found his way here, he would definitely want to know what was written and suffer from the attack. I really shouldn't have said my real name and made up a fake name. However, The good thing is that we can bear the misfortune together. Luo Wushuang is too petty. Grandmaster also had a leg chopped off by me, and it was even the same leg twice, but he didn't say anything. The divine art that Luo Wushuang had left behind didn't last for long, and soon, the power dispersed. The yellow sand in the sky was sliced into dust and filled the air, fluttering in all directions when the wind blew. Qin Mu narrowed his eyes, secretly astonished. Yesterday night, when he and Luo Wushuang had clashed, even though Luo Wushuang's knife skills were incomparably exquisite, they were still inferior to his. Luo Wushuang used fission knife skill, 1 splitting into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, and so on. When this knife skill split the 10th time, it would have 1024 knife lights. When it split until the 14th time, it could be as much as 16,000. Yet, there was a very huge flaw to this kind of knife skill, and that was Luo Wushuang's magic power being fixed. The more times the knife lights split, the weaker the power of each individual one would become. The more splits there were, the lower the offensive power was. Luo Wushuang could act mighty in front of other experts, but when faced with someone like Qin Mu, who was a sword skill expert and a knife skill expert at the same time, he would find it hard to gain an advantage. Because of that, even though Qin Mu's magic power had been almost completely exhausted and he was injured, he was still able to sever one of his arms. However, Qin Mu saw that Luo Wushuang's knife had improved to a terrifying realm. In a radius of dozens of miles, yellow sand had filled the sky, but the true danger still lay in the knife lights hiding within it. It looked like there were knife lights everywhere within a radius of dozens of miles. Yet it seemed like there was only one knife light, instead of many, as it should have been according to fission knife skill. When a knife light slashed a grain of sand, it would reflect and bounce off. Because the speed was too fast, it created the illusion that the knife light was everywhere. Yet Luo Wushuang had only slashed once. Qin Mu guessed that after Luo Wushuang became a god and came here, he saw the words left behind on the stone wall. From the writings, he recognized Qin Mu's sword skill and decided to erect a stone tablet. While standing in front of it, he probably slashed his knife down into the yellow sand, hiding its will and divine art in the yellow sand. Some years later, when Qin Mu came to this place and activated them, they would explore with great power. His knife skills have reached the realm of path. The corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched, and he walked into the dust. He braved the suffocating air and walked toward the cliff. Luo Wushuang's knife skills had already reached the realm of path, and like eternal peace imperial preceptor, he was a terrifying existence on the realm of path. To have entered the path with knife, his comprehension on the knife path would definitely not be weaker than that of butcher. The more terrifying point was that the density of his cultivation was definitely far superior. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. The cliff in front of him was still there, and his writings were still there. The cliff was actually not damaged at all. It was as though Luo Wushuang's divine art had purposely avoided it. Qin Mu didn't think much about it and looked at the stone tablet. It was still around, not damaged at all either. The words on the stone tablet were revealed, but what came next wasn't right now as Qin Mu had guessed. Instead, there was another sentence written in smaller handwriting. You think this is a trap, you think my knife skill here was to kill you. Wrong. Even if you had stood here, you would have been unharmed. I am waiting for you, Heavenly Saint Cult Master. I've experienced 20,000 years, the entire founding emperor era, yet I never found any traces of Heavenly Saint Cult. That was until founding emperor era ended. Founding emperor survivors founded Heavenly Saint Cult, and only at that point did I realize that the person I was waiting for didn't exist in the past, but in the future. Heavenly Saint Cult, having the word saint but in fact, walking the devil path. Heavenly Saint Cult Master Qin Mu is actually Heavenly Devil Cult Master Qin Mu. Once you activate my trap, my divine art will inform me that you're here. I've waited so long for you to come. Qin Mu's face became grim, and he let out a shaky breath. He jumped onto the dragon Chilean's back and shouted, "Go quickly. We cannot stay here any longer." The dragon Chilean immediately sprinted out, and the chest followed behind him as they ran for their lives. Qin Mu's face turned calm and collected. It hadn't been a trap. Even though it looked majestic, the trap was only that Luo Wushuang would sense his divine art being activated, and would know that Heavenly Saint Cult Master had arrived. It was just that. Luo Wushuang was an old monster, who had lived since 30 to 40,000 years ago, and had held a grudge against Qin Mu for severing his arm during all that time. To Qin Mu, this was something that had happened last night, but to him, it was something that had happened 30 to 40,000 years ago. He'd harbored a grudge for that long, yet the trap he lay down wasn't to kill Qin Mu, but to inform him of his presence. Luo Wushuang was truly frightening. He made his trap useless, just so he could take Qin Mu's life personally. Qin Mu brought the chest to escape far away through the afternoon as the sun was going down in the west. The sun above the yellow desert wasn't the same as the sun in eternal peace, and the whole world didn't seem to be the same. They sprinted frantically through the desert, but there seemed to be no end to it. The horizon couldn't be seen, and the end couldn't be reached. Qin Mu couldn't even find the crack through which they had entered. Sweat rolled down his forehead. If he couldn't walk out of here, then he'd die in this weird place even before Luo Wushuang came to kill him. He could die from thirst, hunger, by becoming crazy from loneliness, or even from old age. Don't panic, think. He calmed himself and thought back to the way they had come. In the vast desert, the path that he had taken had long disappeared. Even if he could find it, he couldn't backtrack no matter what. Xing'an didn't manage to catch up to us, so he will definitely wait at the entrance of that crack, hoping for me to send myself to him. Qin Mu's gaze flickered, and he raised his head. At the source of surging river, where broken cliff stretches from east to the west of great ruins, I saw 5 layers of sky overlapping. This means that there are other exits in this world, and I should be able to return to great ruins through them. The layers of formation markings swirled in his pupils as he rode with lax reins, letting the dragon Chilean run west while he just looked at the sky. When night came, the dragon Chilean didn't dare to head forward, so he just jumped onto the chest while Qin Mu laid on it, still looking at the pitch-black sky. The chest crossed sand dunes and continued running into the distance. When daytime returned, Qin Mu looked much more haggard, and his eyes were bloodshot. Yet he still continued staring without slacking even the slightest. Finally, he saw a cloud. The world they were in was a desert without any water vapor, yet a cloud had inexplicably appeared. It looked small at first, but it grew bigger and bigger the closer they got. Qin Mu's spirit was roused, and he jumped up while laughing. Heaven never bars one's way, it's mostly humans themselves barring their own way by giving up hope. I never give up, so I can make my way out alive. He placed the chest onto the dragon Chilean's back, who rose toward that cloud. As they did so, divine light came from the cliff. On the other side of it was a colorful world with tall vegetation and huge, brightly colored flowers. The divine light flowed out from the cliff like a waterfall, connecting the two worlds together. An apparition of a young girl stepping on flowers walked over from the other world and looked at the writings on the cliff while muttering to herself, "There's still 200 more years to 40,000 years. But you should already be born, right? I'm still waiting for you." Her face carried some hidden bitterness as she said in a low voice, "I've lived on, but over these 40,000 years, I could never forget you. I don't dare to grow old in fear you won't recognize me." Suddenly, the stone tablet at the side rose and resonated as stones split apart, forming an arched door. "Heavenly Devil Cult Master Qin Mu, my wait is finally over." A one-armed figure appeared on the other side of the door with a long knife on his back. The man laughed, but it sounded like he was weeping and complaining. When the gazes of the young girl in the divine light and the one-armed figure met, their hearts trembled. Survivor from the High Emperor's era. Extraterritorial devil. Under the cliff, two doors leading to two different kinds of worlds had opened, and each of them had their own restraints. It wasn't the first time the two people had met, and it wasn't their first time clashing. They had fought in the past, in the period that High Emperor era was about to be buried. After that, they had fought numerous times, but it had been Founding Emperor era by then. At the mountain cliff, they had fought numerous times. Both of them by then had left the desolate world, and it was merely their apparitions that were fighting. Their realms were too high and their abilities were too strong. If there wasn't an opportunity, their true bodies couldn't enter this world. There were no more life forms in this world and nothing else that could survive here. It was the great ruins of High Emperor era. A place that was even harsher than Founding Emperor era's great ruins. Great ruins at least still had stone statues of gods to protect the people, allowing life forms to survive. However, there was only a desert here, and when the darkness invaded at night, there was no place to hide. There were no more life forms left since 30 to 40,000 years ago, only gods. During the early period of Founding Emperor era, the gods had left one after another. They went off to other worlds, and the two now fighting were the last two gods to have left. Woman of Bai family from 40,000 years ago, are you here to find the person who left the writing? The one-armed god had a tall body, and the long knife behind him hummed. The knife will seem to be able to penetrate through time and space, slicing into another world. He sneered and said, looks like you had also received news of him coming into being. I long knew your sword skills had problems. They surpassed High Emperor era and even surpassed Founding Emperor era, but I hadn't considered that you were actually related to Heavenly Devil Cult Master. The body of the woman in the divine light trembled, and delight filled her heart. She was completely unconcerned about his enmity. He really came. The him who had time traveled had really appeared here. You can't block me. The one-armed god in the stone door was incomparably arrogant. I want to kill him, and you want to stop me. We've fought for so many years, but it was all a mess after all. Neither of us could do anything to each other. The reason I left my broken arm as is was to be able to fight him one day and take revenge for my severed arm, to take revenge for the hatred of disgracing my path. If I can't break his sword skills with my knife skills, I'll never find it easy to speak my mind, to let my knife path advance another step. For this day, I've already waited almost 40,000 years. The woman in the cliff's divine light walked out of the rays and stood on the desert. She was just an apparition and said faintly, whatever you say is useless if you can't come to this world. The one-armed god turned around, and his blood-red cape trembled to cover the entire door. Suddenly, where the cape was trembling, a knife light sliced apart the barrier between the two worlds. The knife will was boundless and incomparably terrifying. It had actually sliced open the barrier between the two worlds. The knife light rang out and burst out from the stone door. Two sound waves were lifted into the air. In the center was a precipice that was raised 3,000 yards high, and it stretched for hundreds of miles. But when the man wanted to step into this world, an invisible force from heaven and earth bounced him back. The young girl walked back into the divine light and vanished into the cliff. With your strength, your true body will find it impossible to pass through. Give up on this thought. The one-armed god in the stone door pulled back his knife and turned to leave. The stone door gradually crumbled. I will return to this world. Just a world barrier is no trouble for me. The dragon Qin carried Qin Mu and the chest to the cloud. It was clearly day earlier, but the instant they passed through the cloud, the sky became incomparably dark. The crashing of water could be heard in the dark night, and Qin Mu looked in the direction of the sound. He saw the scattered light on the broken cliff shining through the night. They had returned to Great Ruins, to the source of surging river. It was still that heavenly moat that had stretched from east to west of Great Ruins, and the cliff that had a huge drop in elevation separated Great Ruins into east and west. This was also the source of surging river, and the waterfalls pouring down from the cliff. The water source was worth thinking about. The water of surging river may come from the other worlds, and might even enter some others through the cracks. Maybe there is a different story here. Qin Mu looked at the broken cliff, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He saw a headless person standing at the crack. Xing'an. His hair couldn't help standing on ends. Xing'an was guarding the entrance to the world he just left and waiting for him to walk right into him. The world of the Yellow Desert was a world without any life forms, a world that was completely dead. That fellow had actually plucked his head off and left his headless body to stay guard there. When Qin Mu thought about it, the other's head and eyes were probably still flying randomly in the Yellow Desert in search of them. The dragon Qilin also noticed this and silently landed. The chest gave off faint light that forced the darkness back, protecting them. When the dragon Qilin reached the ground, Qin Mu crawled silently down his back, keeping himself low. The dragon Qilin tried his best to shrink his body size, and climbed onto the chest. Qin Mu also got onto the chest, which took wide steps to slowly get close to the river. The river water here was the source of surging river. Because the bed wasn't too wide, the flow rate wasn't too rapid, so it couldn't be considered upstream. The chest entered the river, and its legs gently pushed against the water as it swam silently downstream. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief. Xing'an had left his head in that world, so he would have lost the ability to monitor the surroundings of his body, making it easier for them to remain undiscovered. As long as they got farther, the chances of finding them would become extremely slim. This video will end here.